RFID technology. Actually, this old, well-known technology sometimes can really surprise us because of very interesting and unusual use in various projects and in various countries. Why I say this in the very beginning of this webinar, because we are actually, there was a bit of discovery yesterday during our Spanish webinar, because our Spanish integrator decided to use our RFID system for inventory purposes, and how he did it is really amazing, and I hope you will really enjoy the presentation of his specific project and of our experience in Russia and in post-Sovietic countries, because in these territories radio frequency products have been used traditionally for big industrial machines in very complicated industrial and agricultural projects. So we will be talking about these today. So I will not waste your time explaining maybe too much and very in detail how it works, because I know that here there are very professional integrators, telematics experts. So just briefly, I will just describe the process. Here in this process, we have three main players, technically as for hardware, yeah. And these three players, actually the first player is the tag, RFID tag, radio frequency tag. In case of Neomatic, our company, this tag is active. We produce active radio frequency tag. Or it may be her sister, RFID card. So we do not produce RFID card. However, you can always buy them locally. They are quite available in every country, I think. So these RFID cards and RFID tags, actually RFID tags transmit the data to the RFID reader, and we also produce RFID readers. The RFID reader logically transmits all this data to the GPS tracker, and they are connected via RS-485 in our case. GPS tracker transmits all the data with its SIM cards to the telematics server, for example, we alone, and you can just visualize all the data on your tracking platform. So just some words about these magic active RFID tags. So the fact that they are active is important for those who deal with some projects. Actually, when you need to receive some data from the tag as well, when you need that your tag would be also active and just transmit the data to the reader as well, because there is a difference between passive and active tags, and we will demonstrate the difference based on using some of our cases of application from our integrators. So what else about this tag? It is IP65 and very tight, because it is filled inside with a sealing compound. So you can use this tag under some harsh adverse weather conditions, and all will be fine. And the last maybe advantage of this tag, in my opinion, is that it has a very good internal battery, well-designed battery, which allows it to work 3 years without any recharge. Actually, this is not a rechargeable tag, but autonomous unit that you can replace in the future after using it. So the RFID reader has LED and sound indication, so you can understand what is happening to your device right now without using, for example, the configurator or telematic server, because the device can actually diagnose itself without any problem. And the coverage which it supports is 100 meters in the direct line of sight. Yeah. And it's compatible actually with our GPS trackers, with our RFID cards. However, as for the GPS trackers that you can use with this RFID reader, we actually recommend to use GPS trackers with LLS protocol. It's not that we recommend, it will be possible only with LLS protocol and the interface known as RS-485. The reader allows close and remote identification. And what is interesting about it, it's operation temperature, because you can see that the operation temperature is between -40 up to +85 degrees Celsius, which is crucial for some complicated projects, and we will demonstrate as well with the examples how it works in very low temperatures and very high temperatures and so on. So, and the tracker, which we offer now with this solution, is our ADM 333, which you know already, I think, after our first webinars. And this tracker actually, it has everything which you need to properly work with the RFID solution. It has RS-485 to connect it to your reader. It also has a battery inside. It has a very nice range for operation temperature as well. And also it has some other functions like one wire to unlock inputs, one output, 2 SIM cards, accelerometer, for example, anti-jamming firmware, and etc. But here what is important to us now, it's the interface and its compatibility with RFID system. Where to use radio frequency identification products? Actually, that's an open question to me, because our clients always find new fields of application for this solution and share kindly with us how they are using them in their new projects. However, in Russia, and I think in many post-Soviet countries, our clients use RFID solutions for driver's identification. And it's a very traditional, classical use of RFID cards. Yeah. So trailers identification with RFID tags is also very popular. And I know that it is not only used in this way in Russia, but in Europe and in Africa, in many other continents and countries. The third case, dumpsters identification and monitoring, and we will share the detailed presentation regarding this case during this webinar, because this specific application seemed to us really new for our Russian market. I don't know, maybe in your reality, in your market, in your country, you will not think that it is something new, but actually we really appreciated the violin-based application that our client created for this use. And it's really interesting to me. Refueling monitoring is about proximity monitoring. We'll share also this case from the Arctic zone, from the Arctic Ocean. And accessories, various accessories identification in agricultural and industrial machinery is a common case as well in Russia and in many other countries, because RFID tags are very tight and robust, and actually there are always people who want to monitor some extra parts of big machines, of excavators, for example, big trucks, cranes, forklifts, and they use very often RFID tags for that. So this is a very technical part of our presentation, so I would like to give the floor to Dmitry. He will continue, and I will be back after him with cases of applications. Okay.
Sure. Thank you, Ksenia. About some technical details. Here you can see the very basic information about near field identification and long range identification. In case of near field, we are mostly for sure talk about the RFID cards. ADM20, the reader, supports two variant, two standard of RFID cards. It is MIFARE and marine cards of 125 kilohertz band and 1356 megahertz bands. The distance of the card activating is not, this crucial for the near field identification. So it's approximately 1 or 5 centimeters to avoid for sure some, extra activations, some extra detecting of cards. So you will not receive the information that you do not really need and maybe want to have. When we are talking about a little bit different dimension, we for sure need to mark that the RFID tags are very useful when you are going to detect something that may be located in a long distance, like the remote RFID tags allow you to identify some, trailers, some additional periphery that maybe you will use for your in your projects in maximum distance of 100 meters. Actually, when we are talking about the situation with no obstacles, we tested it and we know it for sure that the coverage will be more than 100 meters. And the very short remark about the minimal distance. This is a tricky moment because someone may think that the minimal distance means that if we, for example, will place the tag near to the reader in distance of 1 meter, for example, there will be some interference maybe, or some errors will appear. Now, when we are talking about minimal distance of 7 meters, it means that the coverage of the very of the weakest regime of the data transmitter allows you to use it within 7 meters. For sure, when we are discussing about some technical details, it's impossible not to bring your attention to the configuration. We have a little video here that I think Ksenia will show you in some details, and I'll try to describe describe what's happening in the screen. Basically, to work with the RFID system of ADM, you need to have a PC, our RFID configurator, and the adapter, the converter of interfaces from RS-485 to USB. Here you can see how the whole process may be conducted. Yes, the COM ports and the creation of them allows us to connect the reader. Yeah, I'm showing you all required periphery. Performing the connection. Yeah, I think maybe some issues appears with the video. Okay, it doesn't matter. Yes, we can program both the reader and the tag. The tag, Xeni already said that it is active, and the active source, I think, of the tag allows us to change various settings that it consists of. For instance, I think we can, yes, here I'm activating the ADM20. We are starting to receive the data from the tag. You can see tag ID number, the subnet, it's a little bit later. The period of data transmission that's set inside the tag, and signal strength allow you to approximate the distance between the reader and the tag, and also battery voltage, for sure. Yes, the main settings of the ADM20, the address of the device, the subnets that allows you to sort out some tags that you may not be interested in. For example, if you have 20 tags and you want this specific reader to work with 5, and the second reader to work with another 15, you may set the subnets. You can see the very same setting here in ADM21 settings menu, and make it possible to the reader to detect only tags with the very same subnet, and for sure signal strength.
So the tag is programmable.
Yes, yes, fully programmable.
The tag is not only active, but also programmable, fully programmable in our configurator. And you can play here as you wish.
Yes. Yeah, you may change the identification numbers, subnet, and stuff like that. Yeah, when we are talking about the identification, we, I think, need to mark drivers identification projects as one of the biggest part of any project that we meet in the market. Here we have a couple of slides that demonstrate you how you can utilize ADM20 and RFID cards with Violon to set up the whole driver's identification system. This slide shows you the driver binding event, the very first one with green chain, and driver unbinding event with broken red icon of the chain. This means that the driver was the driver scanned its card in 5 p.m. and a little bit later, after 6 minutes, it scanned it again, and the shift was detected as ended. The next slide. Yeah, driver properties, very flexible menu that allows you to, put any information that you find crucial or interesting here, the description, phone number, case, codes, the whole driver. Yes, you can move forward. Yes, driver's menu with the whole team built there, and all these drivers may be binned to one object. They will automatically move to it as a driver, as the specific identificator will be detected by the tracker and sent to the violin. That makes all these system work properly. And the last moment is for sure notification, because I believe everybody wants to know as much as possible about when the driver start each shift, when it will be over. Violin, ADM, tracking devices, and ADM RFID system make it possible to realize these scenarios, and I think it may be interesting for most of you.
Okay, so thank you, Dima, very much. And I would like to go to cases of application. And I just wanted to emphasize this technical thing. I don't know, actually, Dima, or don't remember whether you mentioned about and told something about our subnets.
Yes, we talked about subnets a little, and I think we can discuss together this topic one more time, because we have a question from Junaid Hassan. He asks us about how many RFID tags can be attached to a single device. Ksenia actually mentioned it, but I think we always can talk about it a little bit more. Actually, there is no strict limit of the tags. You can use 1, 2, 20, 100 tags. It doesn't matter, because the reader just receives the signal, the advertisement signal of RFID tag, detected and sent to the tracking device after the server. I think when we are talking about the simultaneous work, 20 tags will not be the problem. If we will set tags to send the data, not the very same time, but at least somehow differentiate, not the problem to support 100.
So, and as you can see, I changed the presentation. I changed the presentation because I would like to share with you the experience of our client from Chile, our integrator, very professional integrator from Chile, Juan Carlos Inestrosa, the company called eGPS. And in my opinion, they managed to fix the issue which was so worrying for some of our clients regarding RFID, because the problem of this solution is that RFID reader actually identifies all tags in its range, and identifying these all tags in its range, actually it may mess up these tags, but actually this is not our case, because we have a system of subnets, and in our configurator, as Dima has just shown you, you can put each tag in an appropriate subnet, so that the RFID reader does not mix up anything. However, many people have been dreamt of have been dreaming of lists, white lists of tags, and lists of tags which the reader should identify, and so that, for example, it could ignore the other ones. And I think that partially maybe this problem has been solved by our child integrator with our RFID products and with Wellon. Because his project was about, his project is about inventory, and actually the requirements of this project were to enumerate containers, identify containers by specific numbers, and to check the rotation, the use of containers by different clients. So actually, in the current situation, it was not possible, and the client wanted to realize that. It was also necessary to know the physical condition of the container and register it. When we are talking about physical condition, we mean this because they even invented the application where it was possible to attach pictures with this container and to enter some descriptive texts about this container, and register it when it enters the shop of one client and goes out of this shop. In this way, the client wanted to get the history of containers' useful life, yes, and the history of all its travels. I can see that I didn't translate here in English because this actually webinar was yesterday and today is the English webinar, and I decided to share with you this presentation. However, it is said in the third part that they wanted to identify driver's ID as well, driver's ID and the registration plate as well, matriculation plate of the vehicle, and as well as the name of the driver who was realizing this trip with the container, and the location of the container discharge. Actually, they tested many tags, RFID tags, many RFID readers and GPS trackers. And here actually they are describing why they decided to use ours, because our tags are active, they have battery, they are very resistant. And here are some tips of installation. I like this installation process because they actually invented their own method of installation, which is not used by our clients in Russia for sure, I think. because the installation here is about 3 steps. The first step is that they just sticked the RFID tag to the metallic container with a special adhesive for metal and plastic, and then they welded the tag onto a metallic holder, metallic support, which allows to replace the tag without damaging it afterwards. And the third step was the container identification. They put an inventory number onto the container, and actually that was the installation. Inventory process realized by this child company actually was the process of scanning the barcode of the tag installed onto the container with a special application. This is an Android-based application, I think, yeah, for inventory purposes. And this application detected the initial location of the container and attached to this container in the same application some pictures regarding the condition of this container and its internal number. The number has been assigned by the company. RFID reader and GPS tracker installation was also interesting because actually they put them into special housings, IP67. I think they did it because it actually the project was about garbage and everything which is actually concerned with the garbage is something requiring really IP65, IP67, so you can use it as well. And electric system connection was standard, just the direct connection to the battery, 24 volts. The design stage, which is maybe more interesting in this case and based fully on Vialon, where the tag and registration plate are identified. And in Vialon, actually, they created a kind of repeater transporter for the design server, which actually is able now to process the history to get it visual on the platform. And you can see the report, the history, yes, regarding some tags, some containers, and how it looks like in Vialon. Then in the platform, now it is possible to see the number of container and number of quantity of containers available. It is possible to check the location of the truck because all is identified by the tags. And it is possible to track, to monitor the truck and understand which container it is carrying. It's very detailed as a process. And you can see that this is really a combination of outdoor and indoor navigation, what I really like in this project. And setting geofences. Each client is capable to set his own geofences. And this integrator always knows what client, what container belongs to what client, and he always knows when these geofences have been violated, for example. And the tag allows also to identify more than one container. So we just need to check its position using reading on proximity. What do we see on the screen? Finally, we can see an inventory number of the container and its condition with the pictures. The last reading on container's location, in and out for each client when the container entered the shop of the client and when it left the shop. We can actually see this clearly. and truck and driver's identification, tax and users management. So what else? The client gets its own dispatch and order system. This is the whole inventory system, which allows also to visualize the registration plate, the container ID, the driver ID, which is not indicated here, but it's possible, and location of the truck, which with the tag number, and all this is in the real time. We can see the truck which is carrying this container with this tag in the real time. Benefits here, actually, it's clear because this is the prevention of misuses when drivers bring containers in their homes or use them as they want, and integration containers number and type in the dispatch log because it was not realized before by this client. Identification of available containers with different conditions. And it's very helpful to the sales departments of these clients because now these sales managers can check in the real time which containers are available and start to work with new clients with new projects. And it's possible to check containers used by each client, containers rotation, the useful life of each container, and maybe analyze actually the whole operation and maybe make some conclusions about how good this work is being done right now and maybe correct it in some way. So actually, if it's really interesting to you, you can get in touch with our child integrator. He only speaks Spanish, but we are ready to help you, no problem. And I will come back to our previous presentation. If you have any questions regarding this specific case, we'll be talking about it a bit later, because now I would like to continue with our Russian cases, because Neomatica is a Russian company, not a child company. And in Russia, our experience is different, really different, because RFID has been traditionally used in Russia in big industrial machinery and for complicated agricultural projects to monitor something where the human presence is not desirable, for example, or under some dangerous condition. So, for example, I like this case because this is the case about proximity, the thing which is rather hard to control. And here, this is the case from the Arctic zone, which is even more interesting because this Russian client actually tested many RFID products, and finally they also decided to use our RFID tags and readers because they are very robust, as I already told you, because the temperature they can survive under are really, this range is really large, and in the Arctic zone it was possible to realize this product because of these features and this resistance that the tags have, the tags and the readers. Actually, they are monitoring the proximity while refueling their tanks with fuel, and all this is happening in Korea. You can see, yes, and here this is a different case with Korea as well, with mining. The mining pit here, you can see an open mining pit, and actually here our client developed also its own solution, to monitor the process, and it was realized in this way. Here you can see the RFID reader, which detects the RFID tag, and we imitated this process in our office. I think that was 2 months or maybe 3 months ago, just to show you how you can use a RFID system to activate something. In this experiment, we connected the RFID reader to the GPS tracker, and the GPS tracker has been connected to the bulb. Actually, RFID reader here detects the RFID tag, and in response to this detection, GPS tracker activates its output, and the bulb flashes. You can see, if I switch on the video, you can see that the bulb flashes. So it's possible to do it as well. So I think this is actually, that's all we wanted to tell you today.